everyone. Welcome to the second LinkedIn Live videocast. Now, why was this videocast created? Each guest on this show has had learnings on their personal journey, and I believe these learnings can impact the life of someone outside there as well as my immediate circle. And that's why we've created this videocast. I can tell from today's LinkedIn Live videocast, this is going to be special. I'm expecting dhamakas and fireworks, not only because of the topic, but also these wonderful guests that I have on the show. Achyut Menon, AK, fondly called. His tagline on LinkedIn reads, "Returning Indians find their dream job in India and transition confidently." When I ask him, he says that he is a sales guy, he's not a HR guy. He just gets the person and the organizations together and have a conversation. He's present on who's list when it comes to top HR influencers, whether it's SHRM, People Matters, ETHR World, to name a few. My next guest is Mitcch Duddani. She is a limited edition with unlimited potential. What a tagline! She is a social media coach and trainer, and the quintessential gig worker. Long before the term had become accepted and cool, in the current background. Mitch is part of the executive committee of NHRD Bangalore chapter, and he has a ton of ideas on how candidates, how social media works, and how to get them get organizations ready. Both these guests, interestingly, have one thing in common, and that they have more than 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. They are influencers, coaches, and guides. Welcome, AK and Mitch, and thank you once again for being part of this LinkedIn Live.
Thank you, Jonas. Lovely to be here. And thank you
Amazing.
for an amazing introduction.
Yeah, I wish more people think of us the way you put it.
Also, a massive thanks to those who have joined the live stream and shown your support. I hope the conversation that we have today will have a significant value add for you. On the topic for today, slightly controversial, changing candidate expectations in the new job market. Mitch and AK have been in the front lines, experiencing the shift, living the experience because they consult with organizations, they talk to numerous organizations, and subsequently numerous candidates. And so they have a real feel and pulse of what's happening in today's job market. And so we're going to have a conversation around this to see where things stand and what their perspectives are. So the first question I'll go over to Mitch and also AK subsequently. What do candidates look for in a job search?
I wish I was an astrologer or had some magic wand, where I could, probably get into their heads and think, what are they looking for? But, what I would like to address at this point of time is it's definitely changed in the last few years, from the time probably we would have started working and doing recruitment over 2 decades. Things have definitely changed, and today what candidate look for in a job search, there are multiple things on that. But COVID has definitely changed the way we have worked, the way corporates are looking at it, employees are looking at it, on terms of it looking at it. There was a time probably work from home was a perk, largely for software or IT professionals. Once a week, work from home option available. What they would do it because they had to log in at odd hours, midnight calls, etc. on that. But during the COVID era, after that, everybody went work from home. There's remote, hybrid, all of that happening on that. So things have really changed. And from there, the expectations of candidates have also changed in terms of, if there was this time of 2 years where we were able to do hybrid or remote work, why not now?
True.
Today in Bangalore, if I have to travel from one part of the town to the other part of town, maybe like a Whitefield, Sajapur, Belendur, I would end up spending about 1.5 to 2 hours in traffic. And if
Yeah.
I save that, I log in early, I have enough time for myself, I have enough, my work-life balance, probably I catch up on a hobby and things like that, or extracurricular activities, etc. So candidates have really started looking at what is it that it's giving back to me when I'm looking for a job, whether it's work-life balance. And work-life balance, again, it's very different for different people. There was
Yeah.
this we used to say that if you have 9 to 6 job and evenings are yours or weekend are yours, it's fine. Today, if you look at millennials, for them, it's like I'm okay to work for 1 month and then probably take a 1 month break, go to Himalayas, go to trek, etc. So the work-life balance or spending time, me time, is completely different for people. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's definitely evolved, and I think we as candidates, or people who are helping candidates get the job, or organizations, really also need to evolve in terms of what candidates are looking for today.
Wonderful. Mitch, you covered a lot of points. Interestingly, the commute between Belantur, Sajapur is the stuff of nightmares. And Silkboard is also stuff of nightmares for people. So it's become a core ask for them. One of the things that people ask is, how far is my office from my home?
True.
That's the determining factor. AK, what are your views on this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all the points which Mitch said, but I'll try and zoom out a little. Okay. So personally, I feel, I mean, not just the last pre-COVID part. Essentially, I've been in business, or I've been in the market for 40 years now, since my college, 30 years of recruiting. Okay.
Hmm.
I see the largest changes is the power of choice has changed from the employer to the employee. Okay. So
Yeah.
back when I started, you picked up a job because whoever offered your job, and then
Hmm.
the employer called all the shots.
Hmm.
Every 2 3 years, if they fit, you were deemed for promotion. They would train you, and they would take care of you. You retire, and life was hunky dory.
Yeah.
But if you look at the last 20 years, a lot of technological changes have come. Business models have disrupted. Companies themselves are not sure about their mortality rates. So, while they do a lot of lip service as far as careers are concerned, I personally feel the onus on one's career is the individual.
Yeah.
So, to your question about what does per person look for in a job, I think more than ever now people depend on themselves. They're not dependent on anybody else to decide their careers. Okay, and
Yeah.
I even think that they look at it as a financial asset. Okay, just like
Mhm.
you maxim. I mean, you want to maximize your returns on any asset that you put, whether it's real estate, gold, rent, whatever. So I think career is one asset which you can control. And so people are now becoming conscious that they have to optimize, if not maximize. Okay. So
True,
that's
true.
where the whole thing has come. And honestly, I think if you look at this lens, okay,
Hmm.
context has changed. And therefore, there's nothing right in terms of an employer expecting something or an employee expecting something else. Because these days, like how Reid Hoffman mentions, an employment is an alliance. Okay,
Yeah.
a person will stay on with an employer as long as she or he finds value in it, and it goes
Hmm.
the same way around. As soon
Hmm.
as the company decides you're not adding value, they'll find somebody else to replace you.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think pandemic was one situation that these changes are happening, but some of these changes happened because of force. Overnight,
Hmm.
companies had to stop working, or
Yeah.
stop working from office.
Hmm.
And it is so surprising that technology was always there. It wasn't that you could not work from home earlier, you could not work remotely earlier.
Hmm.
No option during pandemic. And so the employees see that, look, when we have adjusted for the company needs,
Yeah.
when the pandemic is over, they don't want to know. They actually wonder, why is company standing on ceremony? Why are they suddenly wanting you to come back to office 3 times a day, 4 times a day? All
Hmm.
this while, when they had no choice, they trusted you. Now,
Correct.
suddenly the concept started coming of moonlighting and all that kind of stuff. So I have a feeling it's a process, but broadly, the ownership going into now in the hands of the employee, companies are not yet ready to accept that. Okay, that's my
Hmm.
feeling. Okay, so I responded to your LinkedIn live. I said, look,
Hmm.
uh, why? I mean, why do we worry about the candidate expectation in the new job market? Okay, I think it's time employers also looked at what they should expect from. Because I attend a whole lot of these HR conferences, and often HR people say that it's an extended family. But tell me which family. Okay,
Hmm.
when there is a downturn, you decide to throw off your children or decide to tell them get lost.
No,
Okay, you
you
probably,
stick it out.
yeah, we'll figure out. We'll all cut corners. It's not that you lay off when it's convenient, you overhire when you want. So I think somewhere down the line, uh, now people are expecting transparency. Sorry, a long answer to a question, but I guess you get it, the larger ecosystem, right?
So, just to build up on your point, Achut, um, there are people who are multi generational in our workforce. You have people who are boomers, you have millennials, Gen Zs, etc., and each of them have a different expectation. So, how do organizations balance this play between what an X generation expects versus a Y generation?
See, again, it goes the other way around also. Okay, it also depends on the organization, because at every life cycle of growth of this company, the company needs different kinds of people. Okay, the startup, you need generalists who can do everything. As the
Mhm.
company is consolidating, you want specialists. As the
Mhm.
company grows again, you again want totally different skills. So
Mhm.
I think the companies have always, for their survival, decided to hire different horses for courses kind of people. So I
Mhm.
don't, the same thing on the reverse side. I think as a you talked about the multi-channel, the millennials, their expectation in their life cycle of growth in their life is different. Okay, they are not looking to buy a house today, or how my parents would have decided. I mean, at my generation, we always saved first before we started spending. Okay, but now they realize that that's not a priority. So I have a feeling it is, instead of trying to debate why, accept it and decide what's best. I'll tell you easiest example. You take cricket. Okay,
Mhm.
if you see over the last 10 years, we've seen test cricket, one day cricket, and T20. The cricket is the same, but the
Mhm.
kind of skills required in each of those formats is different. So much so
Mhm.
that today you have only two or three people part of all the 10, 11, I mean, all the three, only Virat and probably a couple of people. And so,
True.
you're a specialist for one day, specialist for T20. I think why can't companies also look at that? Okay, you will probably
Mhm.
have a certain set of core people who will handle this, and how
Mhm.
much we'll talk about gig. Okay, you pick and use specialists for the thing. Okay, I mean
Mhm.
that's my personal feeling. So I don't think we'd have to overcomplicate it by talking about multi-gen and all that. That's part of life. Okay, it's part of growth.
Good. Mitch, any views from your side?
Um, in terms of, if I look at it, the multi-generational people who are working on in this organization, reverse mentoring,
Mhm.
learning, and as I said, earlier, the not the employees but the employers also need to, evolve in terms of what are we expecting out of it. So I think
Mm.
that once we kind of come to that bridge, it will help both the parties.
Understood. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. So we kind of now understood different strokes for different folks. There are different expectations when it comes to when it comes to finding a job. So what about we? I personally believe I'm in a enclosed cocoon when I'm working in a large MNC. Are candidates' expectations different when you're working in small and medium enterprises, in traditional industries versus working in a large MNC?
Uh, from a expectation perspective, there are always two sides of it, right? There are pros and cons onto it, or there are A and B list of it. So
Yeah.
when I probably look at larger companies, MNCs, I know for a fact, or a candidate knows for a fact, that there are certain rules, policies, processes are all set. So I
Yeah.
just need to get onto it and probably, a little bit change as per the India process or things like that, which looks at it. But vis-a-vis, when I look at startup, newer companies, new age companies, where maybe the founders are just a college pass out. There are
True,
these
true.
IITs and IIMs who have their offices, their founders, CEOs, etc. on that. When I'm working with them, the
Yeah,
wavelength is very different, the kind of expectation that you're looking at it is very different. The larger companies have 5 year, 10 year view per se onto it. Here it's about the next 3 months, next 6 months, etc. on that.
next
From
funding cycle.
Yes, depends on the funding, a lot of things. And from specialist to generalist, uh,
Sure.
startups, I know that I need to be a hustler, someone who wants to roll up sleeves, look at it. So yeah, from that, I think some KRAs or some kind of things are very clear on what to expect and how to look at it. uh,
True, true.
yeah, so I think that would be my 2 points on that.
And also, I also feel that when somebody is getting into a startup kind of environment, expect change and like expect pivots. You might be promised something, but 6 months down the line, things will change and change dramatically. But that might not be an expectation in a large MNC. Maybe things will take time, even if it's a transformation effort. I've been part of transformation efforts which are like 2 years, 3 years. So you have enough time to plan for the transformation. But if when it comes to a startup environment, transformation happens next next day. Okay,
Yeah.
let's pivot. Let's go on to the new thing. Let's take this market.
I've
Okay.
worked with a couple of new age companies, etc. There are
Hmm,
times when we've seen you're talking about 6 months. I've seen 2 months, 3 months time as well. The probably the goal or the strategy changes. Uh,
true. Okay.
not only from the organizational perspective, but also from a hiring perspective. What are we looking to give back? What kind of people we're looking to hire, etc. on that. So
Yeah.
startups is a very, very different ballgame. Yeah.
Okay. AK, from your side?
Yeah, nothing much to add to whatever
Okay.
Mitch said. Perfectly fine.
Okay.
She's covered
Wonderful.
everything. Yeah.
So the next thing is more in terms of, we touched upon this remote work, and there's a real dichotomy that's happening right now. Organizations are saying, "Hey, we are losing productivity. We are losing our ability to innovate because people are in different locations. Innovation happens serendipitously. When two people come together, there's a conversation, an idea sparks, etc." So organizations are seeing this happen, while individuals are saying, "I have been doing this kind of work for the last couple of years, and I'm doing it well. There is no drop in my productivity. In fact, it's improved because I have that flexibility." But now organizations are mandating that you need to come to office 3 days a week. You can't work from another state. You have to be in the state if you're in hybrid location. So, do you think remote work is here to stay?
Um Again, like you said, from the organization perspective and the candidate perspective. So again, here are two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Where we have worked in the last 2 years, remote, etc. It's worked absolutely fine. Productivity was high. The revenues were high. You looked at everything on that. But if I look at from a corporate or an organization perspective, there's no human touch. People are
Yeah.
not knowing each other. I have in the last I think 1.5 year, I've interacted a lot of junior guys who have just started working. And they said we're not even having the experience or the feel of working in an organization, because the
Mhm.
moment we joined the organization, it was remote working. So we don't
Mm.
even know the people. We only know the people who have interacted in our team on Zoom calls, etc. perspective on that. I don't know how the office culture looks like, how the office looks like, what is it to work in an organization, from that
Yeah.
perspective. So there are these perspectives of that. On the other side, companies are also talking about productivity is high, but then what about my company culture? What about the bonding that I
Mm.
have? How do I take it to the next level? We've
Mm.
achieved this in the last 1.5 year or 2 years on that, but there is probably a 5x or a 10x that you're looking to grow in the next 5 years. Things like
Mm.
that with remote will not work. Certain
Yeah.
roles cannot work remote. Certain
Mm.
teams have to be in-house, etc. on that. So that's a big debate. I think every organization, every HR, every manager is going through that. At the same time, if I look at it from the other side of it, when I come from a gig worker, I've been working from home from 2016. This is much before
Yeah.
the pandemic era and things like that. I started working on my own, and I work from home or anywhere, etc. perspective on that. So that also gives me the opportunity to reach out to larger audience, uh,
Hmm.
where we are talking about not having the budget and the revenue for a role, but I could probably hire someone for a project for a 3 months, 6 months, etc. A particular skill that I may not have in this particular team, and I may not have the budget to hire a full-time employee, but I can look at a gig or anybody remote working across anywhere in the world.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so there are pros and cons to it, but somewhere we need to get into in terms of how much do we weigh the pros and how much do we weigh the cons, and where do we actually align it. Uh,
Yeah. Achut, do you get people, that you talk to saying that don't even offer me a job if it's not remote?
Yeah, I think I personally agree with what Mitch said. I feel that people beginning their career, okay, or
Mhm.
joining the organization for the first time,
Mm.
they need to be working at the office because it's all about the bonding relationship, okay, the culture. You often learn by watching other people work. Okay? So, I mean, for freshers, on site is the only way to pick up skills
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah,
Probably as you grow with experience, I really don't think you need to be, I mean, you don't need to be always in the office. I would go by the hybrid part of it. Okay, I'm not saying remote is bad,
yeah.
but I don't insist on on-site to be good. On-site is required for having the glue together. Okay, because and when I go back to the original thing which I said, the power of choice is now gone to the candidate. Okay, and not the employee to the employer. I feel in the industrial economy, you had no choice. The talent already always had to go to the office. Okay.
Mm.
Over the last 20, 30 years, technology has enabled you don't need to go. So now,
Mm.
and as you see, if you look at even um, the fact that you first had Indian IT industry, okay, back in for Y2K, we all landed up in America to kind of tell the world that we can fix it. Okay, but
Mm.
once Indian talent was accepted, then they decided to outsource it. Okay. After some time, they realized that outsourcing can be done. It was primarily done for cost arbitrage. They started offshoring.
Mm.
Then they realized that distance is not an issue. The work is not an issue. Okay. If the work
Mm.
can be done in India when compared to America, right, why
Mm.
cannot it be done in Jemikunta instead of Hyderabad? Okay.
Mm.
I don't see any reason that way because with all the bandwidth and all that. I have a feeling, but even the last 10 years, you see from offshoring, it's become, you see the GCCs coming up. It's
Yeah.
become right shoring. It's become near shoring. And tomorrow, I'll tell you, if the companies have to sustain, they will have to hire the best guy, irrespective of which part of the world he is. And
Yeah.
so the opportunities will go where the talent is.
Mm.
So that's the thing. So ideally, it can't be on site. It needn't be, especially we see as consumers, we have changed so much here. Okay, all our habits have changed. Okay, so why do we want to take something just because our forefathers did it? So coming to office was something which, at that point of time, had a context to it. Today, with all
Mm.
the kind of HR tools and everything, we can do it. So I think a hybrid will be a more thing, no, accepted thing, and it's high time companies also thought about it. I still feel they are coming that controller thing, okay, that if it's not inside, the employee is not responsible, that kind of a thing. No, boss, it's shown in for 2 years, the productivity hasn't decreased. I don't think,
Mm.
and I would feel that to my the next generation, people, the gig is the future of the work. People decide who to work with, when to work with, and what to work with also.
Yeah.
Okay.
AK, you mentioned an excellent point. How did this whole jobs come about? It was a construct of the industrial age, where you had this neat little package of something called a job, standardized work that can be repeatable. People were able to do it, and then you also had a set time in which they went about doing it. Now, the nature of work itself and our ability to use collaboration tools, our ability to use various different tech that is available to us has really transformed the way we actually perform that work. Our ability to also communicate, all of that. So, naturally there is a change in expectation, of individuals when it comes to what meaning they get out of the whole work piece. And this is a kind of a good segue. Last couple of days I read an interesting article in the paper about the surge in terms of gig workforce hiring. And people are consciously taking that call that, I have the skill set, I know my value in the market, but I have certain personal constraints that does not allow me to be employed full time, but I still have an aspiration to contribute and add value. And so organizations are increasingly, being open to that idea. And Mitch, I'd like you to kind of just expand on that whole gig workforce. In maybe just talk about the time when you kind of started this whole thing to the acceptance levels now when it comes to gig workforce, skill based, project based hiring.
See, gig working is not new actually, Jonas. If you look at it,
Yeah.
we had people who are doing part time, we had people doing freelance work. You look at doctors, they are actually working with a hospital during the morning hours, and evening they have their own clinic, or
Yeah.
they would have a tie up with different, different hospitals or different clinics, etc. on that. You look
Mm.
at designers, there were a lot of roles that you had, where they used to do freelance, etc., pick up the
Mm.
project, or
Mm.
either by choice or either by situations. A lot of times whether they are not in a position to travel, whether they have taken a break because of any health issues, etc., or returning mom or maternity leave, things like that on that. So that was always there. It's just that it's coined a new term, gig economy and gig worker, in the last few years, on that. So people have worked on project basis, but that used to be time that when as a person working on different freelancing project, I'm not open about it. It's very, very
Mm.
confidential. I had to sign NDAs, not tell that I'm working with this association, etc. on that. From there, the journey has been a
Yeah.
something different to, saying that we are okay having a profile, who works from wherever home, etc. on that, X number of hours in a day or in a week, etc. There are certain KRAs, roles and responsibilities. Uh, it doesn't matter when you work, whether you log in at 5 in the morning or 12 in the night. I don't care. For me, the work is important. Your deliverables are important. So that's how I think I have probably seen the transition in the last 7, 8 years of, after quitting my full time job and getting into different roles and assignments on that. Uh, Again, there are
Mm.
two sides of it and two ways to look at it. One, the employer who's evolving to look at gig workers, because as a couple of reasons, in terms of, one, it is cost effective. One, it's, you are not limited to the talent which is available in that specific location. You can hire anywhere across the world. Gives you the opportunity to work with different mindset, different ideas, skill set, etc. on that. And likewise, for an employee, or the gig worker per se, gives you the opportunity to work on it. And if I at this point of time look at my experience or my profile, I work with four or
Mm.
five different organizations, and my roles are very different. There is somewhere where I'm doing
Mm.
training, there is somewhere I'm managing digital marketing and communication, there's somewhere organization where I work in recruitment. That's what I bring to the
Mm.
table in the last 20 years of my experience, and I've been able to pick up my projects accordingly. That also
Yeah.
gives me the opportunity to say that, I am not doing only recruitment 24 by 7%. I should.
Yeah.
And also, being a gig worker, I'm open, and I'm telling the world that I
Mhm.
work with these three or five or four organizations. It's all out on LinkedIn. Whenever I go out, I say I'm a gig worker and I work in the space of this. And it's all open. Whenever I
Yeah.
taking a new assignment, I am very clear that I be fair and I tell my current clients that I'm picking up this assignment. I typically work
Mm.
from a
Okay.
hour perspective. I have that many hours in a week that I can put in for your organization, and that's how I'm working for you. And likewise, it works with the other organization there. So I think
Yeah.
those are, your advantages that you can have for a gig worker.
Yeah. What kind of struck me was when you said gig work is not is not something new. When you told me doctors, they are the quintessential gig workers. I mean, you see the same doctor in multiple different hospitals. They have their private practice, and they're doing it all, and they're doing it as per their time, and they're being paid for that. So if a profession like somebody who's treating us can be done, then why not other professions? AK, your thoughts
And
on
I
gig
think
work?
we management people love to jargonize everything. Like it said, it's been their lifelong. You look at the film industry, was in the film
Yes.
industry for decades they are like that. Okay, there is the
Yeah.
only fixed employees there are the directors. I mean, probably the producer's office. Okay, for the
Yeah.
it's a project right through. Okay, be it one
Yeah.
side is a project, outdoor shooting is a project, indoor is auditing and recording is a project, and none of these people, all of them, have been daily workers for decades together.
Yeah.
They all come together
Yeah.
for the cinema. Once the project is over, they all go, and each person is running his own career. A Pran decides to be a villain, or somebody else decides to be a comedian. Okay, they have built their own brands, but we never glamorize that part of it. It's only now when we want to put some HR gyan stuff like that, we talk about this. Honestly, I still think this gig is a little over,
Mhm.
because see, it earlier the permanent job was when you joined the company and retired. Okay,
Mm.
today the average person stays 2.5, 3 years in the company. What is
Yeah.
the sanctity of a permanent job? That itself is a
Yeah.
contractual job. Okay, it's
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
the difference is contract is probably 6 months or 1 year kind of a thing, and gig is also same thing
Mm.
like that. So I think we
Mm.
love to you know glamorize by a lot of jargons. It's same
Mm.
old stuff, and but the only difference is now people have decided. Look, I just because I'm good at a particular thing doesn't mean I want to do it all of my life. I have a personal life, like you earlier alluded to. I'll do
Mhm.
certain things for work, certain things because I want to be great at, and I will invest in my skills. And because there was a
Mhm.
period, I'm telling you, I mean, I kind of lived in India before the IT industry also. I was shocked to see that in IT industry, happened to be the company's requirement. None of the companies
Mm.
were hiring training program from Monday to Friday. I mean, they had to do it. Nobody comes on a training program on Saturday, Sunday. It almost meant that you were being trained by the employer for the employer's needs. But
Mm.
now all that is shaking out because now you realize that we've got to be investing in our own career. So people will invest, train, they will drive their careers. So they'll decide, like I said, who to work with, when to work with, what to work with. Just like how Mitch said, whether it's recruitment or social management, social media or training, she will choose what she's good at. Not because the boss wants you to do the same thing 18 hours a day. Okay?
Mm.
Sorry.
Wonderful. Okay, now it's an opportunity for our audience to ask any questions that they might have. We see a lot of comments. Some of the things that kind of resonated with them. So we'll just kind of put it up, on the live chat. But if there are any questions and you would like us to answer, please drop it in the comment section. We'll be more than happy to kind of go through it and answer that. So I'm just going through it. Just give me a minute. Okay, so somebody was alluding to the fact of job security. For a large section of the population, I'm making an assumption here, job security is very important. So when it comes to candidate expectations, um, sometimes I have to just go with what is kind of given, to me. What's your take on, when it comes to gig work and this whole element of job security? Um, is that a real concern, or is there is enough for everyone?
I think it all depends on risk appetite of an individual. You know, I
Hmm.
remember when 2016 when I decided to quit and didn't know what I'm going to do. I had an idea, but I
Yeah.
was not sure, and I was definitely not taking up a job. And I remember my boss said,
Hmm.
you're taking a very bold decision. Too early in your
Yeah.
career that you're deciding. If I talk about a decade back, maybe, there were people who are getting into consulting were the ones who are probably towards the retirement age, or probably have lost job, or because of XYZ reasons are not working currently, and probably wanting to get into consulting and do freelance assignments, etc., on the other side of it. But someone who is at
Hmm.
probably at a peak of a career, very early in the age to look at it, I think it's the risk appetite to look at it. You always have this, that today I have this client, I will get my retainer or my money on that, and tomorrow what if this client doesn't come? I need to have my
Yeah.
plan B, C ready perspective on that, or do I have enough bank balance to run it for the next 2 or 3 months? Also depending on what
Hmm.
kind of responsibilities that you have at home, etc., on that. I've also seen there are
Hmm.
times when between the two, the two working professionals, the spouses, they decide that one has a full-fledged proper stability job working with a MNC, knows that there is security and stability, and the other is
Yeah.
willing to take that risk. Recently, I was talking to
Hmm.
someone, and I've come across saying that both at this point of time, both of them, both the spouses are working in probably a smaller firm or a startup firm perspective on that, and where they feel as a family growing, maybe have a kid, etc. What if tomorrow both of us lose our job? In the current situation of the layoffs happening, so, one of
Yeah.
them decided to take up a job, though was not happy, was very happy working in the current organization, but had to take that step to, take a job in an MNC or a larger organization, because there is insurance, there is stability, there's security, etc. You know, on that. And so
Hmm.
that the other person is still working with a startup, or probably starting on their own. So I think it's all to do with risk appetite. Second is in terms of how confident are you that you would pick up assignments tomorrow.
Hmm.
What kind of network that you have, what kind of pipeline that you have. uh, and again, coming back to my example, having to able to pick up assignments in 4 to 5 different areas, rather
Yeah.
than, I mean, I'm still a specialized in all these 3 or 4 areas, but I'm not a generalist profile, right? So either
Hmm.
it's training, either it's recruitment or social media, coaching. I have kind of developed few skills, 3 or 4 skills. So tomorrow it's easier for me to pick up a project in any of these skills. Vis-a-vis if I had been only in recruitment and I had not developed this in the
Hmm.
last 10 years, and we all know
Hmm.
what the recruitment status is at this point of time. So yeah, so
Yeah.
that would be my second pointer on that. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. EK, anything to add over there?
Of course. I think Mitch is being very modest. Okay, if she has three skills, what not telling is she has to be so good in each of these skills that people find value in paying her for doing it. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not just about thinking of tomorrow's clients, but how she is being constantly upskilling and her own stealth. So that's something which she's not telling. If she has got a very good career in three different fields, it's because she's competing in each of these fields with people who are as smart, if not smarter than her, and she's relevant to them. Okay, so I feel the point which you mentioned also is that risk benefit analysis. Is job security, yes, job security is there. I mean, you can be a clerk in a government, okay, but then that doesn't give you anything else. The salaries are low, okay. The job you do is pretty much mundane. You know what you're going to do for the next 5 years, next 10 years, next. In contrast, why do people join startup? Okay, because the benefit is much higher. The upside of somebody getting stock options or an IPO is so high
Yeah.
that take that risk. So it's always traded. Risk and benefit is never equal. If you have a high risk job, your benefits are high. If you have a low risk job, your benefits are low. So you've got to take a call. And I think Mitch is what is a great example for all of us to be relevant across 20 years. Joke. Okay, with so much of change going all around, companies itself are finding disruption tough to handle. Now she's doing think it's the future of work is gig, and each one has to invest in their own skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
AK, one audience question that kind of has come up. What is the top most expectation of candidates in 2023? Shashank, thank you for the question. What's the top most expectation?
Right now, learning. Okay, earning is secondary. Okay, because they've seen it. Okay, they've seen it. Okay, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry got a 60% hike 2 years back, and now they're spending sleepless nights, vulnerable when they lose their job. They keep hearing of layoffs happening all around. Today, I think what I alluded to about Mitch, learning. Are you able to have a skill which is marketable? Moment you do that, moment people find value in employing you, your security is there.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you, and I see a lot of thumbs ups also for that response. Learning before earning. That's a tagline you should coin, AK.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next question is, how would you start a project that requires you to use new tech? Not exactly on candidate expectations, but it's a question that Nagajoti has kind of asked. So, what's your take on that?
New tech, anything new, like AK said, and you coined it, learning before earning. So whatever you're doing, if it's your new role, new project, you always take an KT, you understand what it is, etc. So the baseline is that you need to understand what are you doing and how it's going to help you. If you're using the technology, how it's going to help you.
Hey, my answer to this: what choice do you have? If you don't learn, you're becoming extinct. If you're not going to adopt to that, okay. So I mean, like latest about Chat GPT, it's not that no, uh, that you lose jobs. You lose job to someone else who uses Chat GPT. You're not going to lose a job to a machine.
Yeah.
So I don't think you have a choice. If a new tech comes, better adopt it. Okay. If you're not going to do it, somebody else will.
Yeah, and also, you can play around with new tech. There are different development platforms. Take for example Chat GPT. This is generative AI is new tech. You can play around with it for your own personal projects, and you don't really need the organization. But when the organization is then asking you to use AI, you are familiar with it, so it's very much in your control. I'm getting a ton of questions, so I'll kind of have to go through and just select questions related to the topic of our conversation today. So, Sarang Brahme, somebody that we all know, has a question. What's your advice if TA folks, talent acquisition folks, wants to do gig working?
So I've had this question a lot of times. People have reached out to me looking at it. So like I said, TA is one space that you're there. Within the TA also, if you break it down, there are multiple roles available for you. You're in staffing, you're in leadership hiring, you're in consulting, within that as well, per se onto it. So one is, what is it that you want to do within the TA?
Yeah.
Second is whether you want to start something on your own or whether you want to take different projects. When you look at different projects, again, you would be probably, you're a freelancer recruiter, you probably have your own agency, set of people that you work with, do sourcing, all of that is there. But with that, what is it that you are giving extra? Or what is that unique in you? I think that's very important for all of us to look at it. Why me? Like if it's Mitch, why Mitch? Why that person is coming to me to look at my services, or what is it that I am offering then the other 500 or 1000 recruiters are not offering on that? So if you find that niche, that is the most important thing. And then looking at it in terms of how do you want to work on it? What is your risk appetite? Whether you want to
Yeah.
leave your full-time job and start something on your some from scratch. Do you want to partner with other gig workers or different platforms? Do you want to partner with international firms who are looking at people who work like a freelancer, recruiter, etc. on that? So that's within the space, and then also looking at it, what is it, the X factor that you're offering, you know, outside the TA space, so that you can juggle in and probably make your space around that.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. It's not going to happen in 1 day, 2 months, etc. On that, you have to find that answer and work towards that goal.
Yeah. And if you want to know how to do it, Mitch is doing consulting. So reach out to her and she'll help you to get on that
I'll
journey.
add one caveat. I'll add one caveat.
Yeah.
You have no choice but to be the best in the world in your area of specialization. You can't be a generalist and hope to make a livelihood out of it and be relevant to all. You have to be the top 1% in the area that you're working in, because your competition tomorrow is not in the part of Bangalore, but it would be anywhere from any part of the world, any time zone. And so, unless people find value in reaching out to you, your history.
Okay. Next question. I'm getting a flurry of questions. Akshay Kumar has asked, can you throw some light on dual employment or moonlighting? Um, okay, we are discussing candidate expectations, but any one of you kind of want to take a shot at it?
Yeah, I would love to.
Yes.
Okay, if people find it difficult to do one job itself well. If that guy is able to do two jobs, he or she, hats off. I think they deserve to do it. If they can do a third one, get into gig like Nick, Mitch.
So I again would say, moonlighting probably or dual employment came into picture after that Swiggy and Rishabh Premji's comment on that, or
Yeah.
during the COVID era, where we found employees working remote, and you don't know whether they're working during the day for us and at night and things like that. But uh, again, jargons that we have. I
Yeah.
remember when I used to work with Coffee Day, and I
Yeah.
would work with NHRD, and I would go out and give training to college campuses, etc. I was also into baking chocolates, etc. Used to do that, So I had someone in front of my boss. I mean, boss, everybody was aware on the floor that I do this over the weekend. And but my role at Coffee Day was completely talent acquisition, and this was completely different, had nothing to do with TA. So someone actually came and said, oh, you're moonlighting, so I heard
Mm.
this word probably in 2000, 14, 15, of that, someone said moonlighting, and my boss turned around, no, it's not moonlighting. She's following her passion and doing her hobbies over the weekend. She may make money out of it, she may do it for volunteering, etc. Whatever it is, it's her choice, but it's not moonlighting on that. So it also depends on, in terms of how, as I said, as an individual, does it allow you to do it?
Yeah.
Can you openly talk about it? Is it
Mm.
legal? What are your values that you're bringing onto it? If
Excellent.
you're working with different organizations, do I have the courage to go out and tell 100 people that I am working with two different organizations?
Mm.
Perfect. Ethics is a
Ethics is the
critical
thing,
thing.
and if you're not open to, if you cannot, if you have to hide everything, then it's definitely dual employment, moonlighting, all of that you want to turn the jargons on.
There should be a conflict of interest, okay, in terms of the activity that you do, okay. It should be clear mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's this is such a important question to kind of really reflect upon. And Mitch, what you said was so eloquent in terms of what are the guidelines. If in doubt, do you have what's your values? Is it ethical? Is it legal? And follow those guidelines before you actually take up an activity. And I always believe, if in doubt, avoid. You should be clear, because if you are clear, then the rest of the things kind of go. And each organization also has a certain set of guidelines. It's important to be mindful and respect those guidelines, because you are kind of employed with that organization. So great. We got a flurry of questions. Oh man, I'm getting a few more questions. Maybe this is the last one. Really engaging conversation. Job clarity aligned with corporate goal, plus a friendly work environment are a key to success in an organization. What are your views? Job clarity aligned with corporate goal, plus a friendly work environment are key to success in an organization. Anup Tota has asked this question. What are your views?
Probably I would say this is an ideal situation, or an ideal a job or an employer that we would love to have on that. But whenever we talk about looking for a job change, looking for a new role, there are different perspectives to it, or there are, five or six pointers that I'm looking for it. Either it's a location, either it's a new role, I am bored with my current role, or a salary, family, a lot of things that actually makes this thing look at new role and things like that perspective, right? So from a corporate perspective also, it's like that. When I'm looking to hire, there are four or five attributes that I'm looking in a profile that I want in this. So aligning yourself to a corporate goal. There are times when we are looking at a job, probably it's there, but when we work in an organization, we need to make sure that we align ourselves. So it's two ways.
Yeah.
The company has to make sure that, whatever our goal is, or it's changing, I need to work with my employees, give them that kind of an opportunity, training, platform, etc., so that it aligns with my goal. And as an employee, I am also aligned to the corporate goal to look at it. Today, friendly environment, I don't think so that's the only thing, but apart from that, from both the sides, we're looking at in terms of how do we have a work life balance. What is the employee well-being, mental health, infrastructure. There are a lot of things that as an individual we are looking for, and an organization looking to offer all these, probably the well-being and the options for the employees on that. So I think that's the way to look at it, rather than just saying a friendly environment.
Okay. So we are almost at the end of the video cast. I just want to really thank AK Mitch. Wonderful free flowing conversation. We covered a lot of different points. We had a very engaging audience as well in terms of asking us questions. So I would just say, if you want to continue the conversation, please reach out to AK Mitch on LinkedIn. I'm also there on LinkedIn. We can probably continue this conversation, but thoroughly enjoyed the interaction, the questions, the perspectives, and there's so many things that I have in terms of reflection. So, AK Mitch, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for calling us. It's splendid. Okay. The topic is such that we could continue talking for a few hours more. Okay, and still not got to the end of it. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, AK, and thank you, Jonas, for having me here. Really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you, audience, for having such interesting questions. As Jonas said, we can always continue to interact on LinkedIn and other platforms. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you. Just give me 1 minute. I'm trying to end the live stream.
Maybe switch off.
Yeah. So, Mitch and AK, if you can just switch off your video and audio, I will just close my system.